Now the problem these days, right, in a lot of media, in our social media, in all the media, the problem that they try to highlight is whether to go for a cremation or for a burial, right? So most of you ask me that question, right? The students of my class, to give you an idea. So I'm going to do this explanation for you. You already know several facts about them, but assuming that you don't know anything, I will explain all the relevant things, right? So when this discussion goes on, I have seen now most of the people already have an opinion, right? Due to religious beliefs, right? Or due to some reasons which we should act against those people who has the religious belief, right? Somehow initially all the people have some idea, or most of the people, right? Then they try to find the facts to prove that. But the correct way or the correct method should be, first you should have the facts straight, all the necessary facts. Then you should be able to come to a conclusion, right? So I'm going to provide you the essential facts. Especially, I saw many people try to quote the O-level science book for this process, right? Several places, actually only 3 pages state about this virus in our O-level science book, because we didn't have that much of importance. Such pandemics were not infecting the country. In the previous syllabus, actually the current existing syllabus was constructed. So there are not a lot of information, but people try to quote that book, right, in the way that they believe, to prove their beliefs, right? So let's first get the facts straight, then you can decide what to do or what not to do, right? So first, the microorganisms. Microorganisms. There are a lot of microorganisms. Microorganisms means the organisms, very small organisms, that cannot be seen with our naked eyes, right? When they are taken individually. They can be unicellular or multicellular. That is how we describe a microorganism, very small. Right? So most of the microorganisms around us are useful for us, right? For our food industry, other chemicals productions, right? For agriculture, many purposes, right? Microorganisms are very useful, but a small part of those microorganisms cause diseases. So we give them the name germs. Other names are also given, but here germs, right? So when we talk about the germs, in that germs category, there are a lot of microorganisms. Bacteria, cyanobacteria, fungal varieties, fungi. Likewise, lot of groups are there. So in germs, there is another group called virus, right? But the problem is, up to this day, with the information that we have, we don't call virus as an organism. Virus is not considered to be living in science. So is it non-living? No. So in science, virus has kept in a strange place, right? Neither living nor non-living. Why is that? So how to define one thing is living or non-living? Is this living? No. It's obvious for you. It's not living. Why do you call this not living? Because this doesn't show any living characteristic, right? So what are the living characteristics? Growth, respiration, reproduction, right? Because there is a list. You can see, right? So if something shows those characteristics, it is not a thing anymore. That is an organism. If something doesn't show few of those characteristics, it is not an organism. It is considered to be a non-living thing. So virus, from this list that I showed you, shows only one living characteristic, that is reproduction. Again, that is only inside a living cell. We call that cell a host cell. So virus merely shows small characteristic that is possessed by us, that is living. So This kept in this middle part at the center, neither living nor non-living. The first thing that you want to know about virus, right? So let's go into this virus and see what it does. How does it look like, right? So since you quoted this O-level science book, right? Now you can see here the things that are stated about virus in O-level science book, right? So there are different shapes of virus, right? Helical virus, right? Envelope virus, complex shapes, likewise. From that, now the discussion is about COVID, right? So the COVID virus comes under envelope virus. That means it has a covering, right, which is made out of protein and lipids, right? Basically, we call that as the protein envelope. Inside that, right, as you can see, inside that, there is DNA or RNA in virus commonly. When it comes to COVID, that is RNA. So these strings, small strings, are the things which helps to produce exactly similar organisms like them inside the host cell, or these little strings, right? This is just like a coconut, you can see, right? These little strings are the ones who have that information to produce exactly similar new organisms, right? So they are the ones which contain that information. When this virus gets entered to a living cell, according to the information inside these small strings, that is RNA, virus can produce exactly similar new virus using the material inside that, right? So if you move to the 2D structure, this 3D one, previous one, the 2D, right? You will nicely see the simple structure of that one. There are some other parts, right? The simple structure of a virus, which is coated, covered by a protein capsule and the nucleic material. DNA and RNA, we commonly call them as nucleic material in science, right? So this is the simple structure of a virus. Now let's see what is the effect of a virus. What can a virus do to us? As I mentioned you earlier, virus can enter to our body, right? Enter into our body initially. It can enter to any system, through any system, to any system, right? But if it enters to the bloodstream, it can easily go throughout the body, everywhere, right? Because the blood supply is there for many of the tissues. You already know that one, right? So when a virus enters to our body, what it does is they invade our cells, right? Imagine this is a cell. You know the structure of a cell very well, but imagine this is a cell, right? If this is a virus, they initially enter to our body, 2 or 3 viruses. They enter to our body and enter to a cell like this. So after entering, right, now they are inside the cell like this. After entering, what do they do? Just like I mentioned you earlier, using that RNA information which is inside the RNA, they replicate here. They multiply, reproduce. Now this is the only living feature that they show. While they reproduce, when they reproduce, what do? They take all the resources inside this host cell, right? It can be nutrients, it can be digestion of the organelles. That means there are important parts for us inside this cell. So they destroy all of them. Ultimately what happens? The whole cell gets destroyed as a result of that. And, right, the case doesn't stop here. And this number of virus is increased here due to the reproduction. Imagine 3 came here, sometimes 3000 can get out, right? Due to the reproduction, 300. Somehow the number is multiplicated here. So all the new virus coming out of this one, after destroying that particular cell, right, invade other cells of the body. Likewise, this continuously happens for a long period of time. So when considerable amount of cells get destroyed, right, when the body cannot withstand this destruction, several symptoms start to appear, and if it further increases, that can be harmful for our life also. So this is how we get ill from viruses. So in this case, I'm not going to explain any mechanisms, right? Just trying to give you the basic information. They enter, they reproduce, right? This is just like a factory now, right? Produce a lot of virus, and all of them then again go out and destroy the other living cells, right? Other healthy cells, and huge destruction is done for a particular organ or for the whole body, right? This picture also shows you how they invade our cells. So this is how a virus can damage to our body. Now let's see how a virus can spread. This is the problem now, right? With the spreading, we have a lot of myths and also we have a lot of opinions, right? Now, a virus can easily spread from one person to another person. That is why, due to this situation, we instruct you to keep this 1 meter distance, right, if possible furthermore. So that will be immensely helpful, because the easiest method for a virus to travel from one person to another person is through contacts, direct contacts, right? And also through saliva, right? When we talk, microparticles of saliva can go. In one such microparticle, considerable amount of virus can be contained, because they are very, very tiny organisms, very tiny, right? Even way smaller than a bacteria. So the virus should only be, or can only be observed through an electron microscope, very small, right? So those are the direct methods, direct contact. When I'm touching someone, right, if there is a virus in me, definitely it can go, right? Due to my saliva, right, or any other particular thing, that means hair particle, right, in saloons, all these places, right? Likewise, directly, they can go from one person to another person. The second one, right? The second one is, now imagine I am infected with a virus, right? So, and I am going to be in some place, in a cafeteria or something like that, right? With my sweat, when I am touching the things in that cafeteria, right? Definitely virus can deposit on several surfaces, right? Virus can deposit on several surfaces like this, right? They deposit. So, even though they are inactive, right? Inactive in these surfaces, they are not dying here. They are not destroyed here, right? So, from virus to virus, the time which they can exist in a non-living surface differs, right? So, here is the time durations which is provided in relation to the COVID-19 virus, but they have not directly taken the COVID-19. They have taken the time durations of SARS-CoV-2. It behaves exactly similar to the COVID-19. So this is the estimations of the World Health Organization. World Health Organization estimations about the time which they can be on a non-living surface. So even though when they are not on a living surface, they exist. So if I am going to touch, now imagine I have spoiled this place with virus, then another healthy person comes here. When he touches, right, these particles can enter to his or her body. Then he or she can very easily get infected with the same virus. So that is the problem. So even though virus doesn't show any living characteristic when they are in a non-living surface, they can definitely be, or they can definitely survive in non-living surfaces for a considerable time. Now, the problem with the dead bodies, right? Usually, a person who dies from COVID has millions, billions of such virus inside their body, right? So even though he has died already, there are some materials which can a virus consume and live successfully for sometimes few months even. The person is dead, but there are materials which the virus can use, just like I mentioned you earlier, to reproduce, right? And survive inside a dead body. So inside a dead body, this virus can successfully survive, sometimes for several months even, right? Even though that's a non-living surface, in this non-living surface, this virus doesn't have anything to consume, doesn't have anything to reproduce, any nutrient. But inside the dead body, there are, right? So they can exist. So when we bury a dead body, what can happen is, right? So this is the dead body of the person, right? This is the ground level. So such virus can go out, right, and add to the groundwater, right? That is the possibility. This is only a possibility. Please remember that one, right? This is a possibility. So they can add to the groundwater. They can mix with the groundwater, and you know we consume the groundwater. So if this is a water stream, right, which runs, there's a depth, right? There's a depth. I'm just going to show possibilities. There's a depth. Groundwater doesn't run this close to a dead body, right? But for some reason, right, the water, and when we take out this groundwater for other purposes, this virus can survive. So please remember, right? There is a possibility they can survive. That is the thing that you use. That is the logic behind, right, the risk of this burial process. The cremation, under these temperatures that we use, definitely any of these virus particles don't exist, right? So if we are going to bury a dead body, this is the risk that we possess. This is the risk that we possess if you are going to bury, right? These are the scientific facts. Now, if we go for the World Health Organization regulations, they have clearly instructed to take that decision for the local governments, right? For the local governments, they have not instructed to cremate, or they have not instructed to bury, right? So they give that because when we are burying, you have to consider about this water depth, right? Groundwater depth, this water table, right? Usually in Sri Lanka, the water table is considerably less, having a less depth, right? That means close to the ground. So these are the scientific facts. These are the things. So this, who should take this decision then, right? Just like the World Health Organization has instructed, the local governments, right? They have the expertise. This is basic knowledge, right? They have microbiologists, right? And they have molecular biologists. They have geologists, right? They have experts about the water management, right? They can use all this knowledge and take a straightforward decision, right? You can, so this is what I did here, is to give you a basic idea what will happen, what is the possibility, right? They can really check whether assessing the Sri Lankan conditions, right? So this is not something to be done on Facebook or in other media. But why do they do this? Why do they encourage people to do this? Now you know, this is not the biggest issue in Sri Lanka at the moment, right? This is not the biggest issue at the moment. This burial or cremation. You know that due to this COVID pandemic, the whole economy of the world, from a macroeconomic perspective, if we take, right, the whole economy of the world has collapsed, right? And individual economists, right, from small business person to household, right, the microeconomic perspective, all the economies have faced some threats, right? So that is the biggest problem that we face now and also in the upcoming years, especially 2021 and 2022. You'll have to face huge problems, right? The depreciation of the rupee, a lot of problems are there. So these are the real issues. There is one such issue, right? We don't talk about that one. Governments don't like us to talk about that one, right? So to hide these problems, government or whatever the people do, right, try to take into discussion these unnecessary topics. And also this economic perspective is one huge problem that we want to discuss, and as a country together we should find solutions for that one, right? To forget people like to give us carrots like this and to have debates for months, right? When this gets over, they will give another one. So please remember the real issues. And also, you know, already know that one, right? The first issue, economic one, because that is going to be existing for a long period of time, few years definitely, this impact. The second one is the health issue. You know that this COVID is now out of control, right? No one can control that one. If you compare the situation to the situation which existed in April, May, right, 2020, I'm talking about, right? It was under control. We knew where exactly patients are, right? How exactly this spreaded, right? Everything was under control. Even the government had the information. They did a nice job. But now it is out of control. The responsibility is partially with the government and also with the public, general public, right? So first, both the government and the general public should work on to reduce these impacts on people due to this virus. Not this cremation or burial. We should try to prevent people from dying due to this COVID first and foremost, right? So we should force the government, right, to take the necessary steps. And as general public, we also should take the necessary steps to prevent this from spreading. So please remember, it's a very small issue. Facts are straight, right? So you can come into a conclusion what to do. But please remember, this is not the biggest issue at the moment, right? There are several issues. They are going to have very high impacts on all of us. So together, as a country, we should address those issues rather than wasting our time on these useless things, right? So as a person who teaches science, people requested me for information. So I gave you these things. So decision is up to you to take the right decision. Thank you very much.